Well, greeting and salutations. It looks like they're giving me a notice that Facebook deleted. It looks like this stream was deleted on foot, but try creating a new screen or just remove this destination and re-add it. No, we don't have time for that. Sorry, Facebook folks. We are not going to be talking to you this evening. Anyways, greetings and salutations, test takers. This is the Series 7 Guru coming to you from my off-grid studio, getting our kicks on Route 66 with our always special VIP guest, managing member, Test Geek Exam Prep LLC. We will take care of some housekeeping and admin, and then we'll get underway, helping you with any testable content you may have that we're able and willing to help you with. Most of the times we're able, but sometimes we're not willing, and other times we're willing but not able. No, I'm kidding. If it's good at SIE, we can answer pretty much anything. If it's like 27, a little more iffy. Might have to do some homework. All right, so let's get our going here. Boom, boom, boom. You are not alone. Oh, by the way, tell us where you're joining us from and what test you're taking. But our social media is about helping people know they're not alone. We have a test-taking tribe, a big test-taking tribe. Guru Nation consists of several tribes. We have a Facebook tribe called Baby Brokers Doing Hat Tricks. Baby Brokers is a term of endearment for rookies in the securities industry. Hat trick is 3 successes in a row. Think SIE 766, SIE 663. You get the idea. We also have another tribes in the Reddit community. We have a Reddit for each of the exams. Where my red thing? There we go. We have a subreddit for Series 6. We have a subreddit for SIE and Series 7 or Series 7. We have a subreddit for NASA exams, 63, 65, 66. And we have a subreddit for Series 24, 9s, and 10s. So feel free to join us there or join us here on the channel. If you're looking for a free supplement to your paid study materials, you need to buy materials. This is not a time to be frugal. This isn't a time to be cheap. If you're looking for a free supplement, nothing better than my YouTube channel. It's completely free. It's the only YouTube channel I know of that is completely free. There's no upsells of any kind, no upsells for channel memberships or coffee cups or t-shirts or any of that stuff. I've organized that channel with playlists. So you would go to your SIE, your 65, whatever it is, check out the playlist. The playlists are in suggested watch orders. If you go for 66, for example, that playlist the first playlist starts with Brian and I, with a podcast series we did. And the first episode is who takes the 66 and why, or 65 and why. Then there's lectures, there's practice tests and practice questions, so on and so forth. That's if you want to binge. It's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. If you're looking for a particular topic, it's okay. Brian and I know we're going to get asked questions we've answered many times. They'll live forever in video format. And if you just went into the channel search bar and put in margin or accrued interest or whatever, all that content would magically appear. So don't be looking for a needle in a haystack. We have 2,400 videos, tens of thousands of hours. So, use that search bar. Use that search bar if you're looking for a particular thing. Now, in terms of paid supplements, I don't think there's any better paid supplement than a Kaplan QBank if you don't already have one in your possession. Oh, by the way, I forgot to make a banner. I do collaborate with Kaplan once a quarter, and I'm doing a Series 7 exam, Guru Exam Prep / Kaplan, February 17th and 19th. You're welcome to join us for that 3-day cram course. And the 15% Kaplan discount applies to all Kaplan products and services. However, I really want you to have a QBank. If you don't have a Kaplan QBank, please get it. It's over 3,600 performance opportunities on the Series 7. That's what I call practice questions. Has a performance tracker, really helps you identify areas for remediation. If you're looking for some distillation of all that stuff, my God, the guy at Kaplan who's in charge of NASA exams, subject matter expert, is Chuck Lowenstein. And if there's a long way to say something and a short way to say it, he takes the long road. And my God, that 65 book is about this big. It's no different with Past Perfect or Knopman or anybody. So I would suggest if you want somebody to distill that information for you, get Brian's paid supplement. What he does is distill that all into what's testable and how it's tested. And he's been kind enough to give our viewers a 20% discount. So that means all in on Brian's about $100, give or take a few bucks. You get a whole video series for your exam. You get a PDF. What I like about that PDF, besides is, quick notes or class notes. What do you call them, Brian? Class notes, quick notes, something like that.
Yeah, either one. Yes.
And then you get a practice exam, and I think his practice exam is the best in terms of correlation to the exam. So if you do take me up on buying that, put that practice test away that Brian has with that content, and do that maybe 1 or 2 days out as your final intellectual inventory before you test. That's what I recommend to my test takers. All right, let's see. I think that's all the housekeeping. So let's see what we got going on in the comments. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, we're already busy. Are broker dealers ever federally covered? In that language, the answer is no. And the reason that girl is no is because federally covered, as it relates to your exam, is exclusively about an investment advisor either being federally covered or not, in which case it'd be the state. So I just don't want that term floating around broker dealers. Do they always register? No. Broker dealers register in states in which they have a place of business or they have a retail client. The BD side, I think, is pretty simple. No office, no customers, no register, right? So if they have a place of business, they have a retail client, they have to register. I imagine you're taking a 63, 65, 66. Hey guys, I got my Series 66 exam in 36 hours. What should I lock in and make sure I know when it comes to dividend discount models and discounted cash flow and all that fun valuation stuff? Well, we're not going to make you come up with the valuation itself. But I would know that dividend discount models are about discounted cash flow. We'll just call the whole thing DCF. Is about what is the present value of a stream of income payments, whether that be dividends, if it's a stock, whether it be interest, if it's a bond. And I always use Brian. Brian's not besides being a test geek, he's a math geek as well. And I say, hey, Brian, I understand that the value of $1 10 years from today, let's say I have a 10-year bond that pays me 6%. So I say, hey, Brian, I know that I'm getting 20 payments of $30. And I know my $30 6 months from today is worth more than the $30 I'm getting 10 years from today. And so what I'd like you to do is run some numbers for me and tell me what is the present value of that bond, knowing that I'm getting $1,000, future value is $1,000. I'm paying today's price. I'm getting that par, and then I'm going to get these payments because I'm using that to decide whether I'm getting a good deal, a bad deal, or no deal. I'm joking. And the way we say that in the securities industry is overvalued, undervalued, or, efficient, So Brian comes back to me. He says, Dean, did you buy the bond yet? I said, I have not. He says, well, what's the price of the bond? I said, I'm not going to tell you. Tell me what the present value was. He said, well, Dean, I calculated the present value as being $900. I said, well, Brad, I can get the bond for $880. Woohoo! Net always means difference. Whenever you hear the word net, that means the difference of two numbers. And so the difference there, the net is $20 in my favor. It has positive net present value. It's undervalued, and perhaps I want to proceed. If Brian says, Dean, the present value is $900, I go, damn, Brian, it's $940. I'm paying $40 difference between the present value and the current market price. That is not in my favor. That's negative net present value. The bond is overvalued. Brian says, Dean, what's the price? I said, present value is $900. I say, hey, Brian, the price is $900. He goes, oh, pretty efficiently priced. Right? There's not any difference there. Net zero means no difference, right? So it's applied to a stock. To get that, we use it called the dividend discount model. Same idea. Bank of America pays 28 cents a quarter in dividends. The 28 cents this quarter is not worth as much as the 28 cents, next year. Same thing. I call Brian and say, hey, what's the present value? Now, as it applies to a stock, that's called the dividend discount model. He said, well, Dean, should I make the assumption the dividend might grow? Because that would result in a higher valuation if we think they're going to raise their dividend. I said, well, Brian, no, it's a preferred stock, so we can't use the dividend growth model. Or he says, hey, Dean, we can use the dividend growth model. And that would be a test question. Which valuation will result in a higher value? Now, as it relates to your other valuation stuff, I love what you said there, valuation stuff. I would certainly know PE is a multiple, a PE multiple is a valuation technique. I would certainly a price to book is a valuation technique. And I would apply that to what we call fundamental analysis and what we call value investors. Right, that might be there. Now, Brian, would you like to add to this? I mean, that's a pretty good for 2 minutes. I think that's pretty good.
I think that's perfect. I really like it. Yeah. In this format, that's about as far as we can go.
Yeah, exactly. Check out the channel search bar. Put in analytical methods. A bunch of stuff will come up. Scored 77.83 on my STC practice exams. Got a 71 on the test geek. Well, that's because Brian is a bigger jerk than the STC jerks. No, I'm joking. Brian's trying to stretch your mind and hope it doesn't go back to the same spot. I think the 71 is a very reliable score. I don't think you're at risk with a 71 on Brian's test geek practice exam. I think the variance will be in your favor, and you still have some time to find some points. So the variance from 71 to 83 is a little concerning, but you're in that nice niche there with STC. Brian, what do you think? 71? Should he be worried?
No, I like it. The chance of passing when you pass one of our exams, or at least over a 70, your chances of passing are well over 90%.
So, Hans, if we were betting people, if we were bettors, which we are, we would bet on you to pass. Yeah. I don't bet as much as Brian does, but we both take a flyer every now and again. And I don't think, Hans, you're a flyer. I think if you stay confident in the execution of your study plan, this is important. Don't get wobbly. Stay confident in yourself, and most importantly, stay confident in your answers on test day. I think you will make your mark, or as Brian says, get your P. Brian, your thoughts?
The difference between those scores, potentially, because you've done 2,000 STC questions. There's a style to them. You're probably used to those. And that probably explains the difference.
Yeah, that's true when you go from any vendor to another vendor. True. Yeah. But that's why I like you to say Brian's. Not to scare you like here 36 hours out, but so you can see some different phraseology.
Right.
And, and what you're looking for, Haas, is confirmation. What I mean by that is stuff you missed on Brian's that you missed on STC. Right. So that's when you're having more than one vendor. I don't think people are monogamous about, getting help on their test. But the advantage of having additional resources is to make that confirmation or non-confirmation of a test issue, right? If you see it, I get this a lot, Brian, on your content. Somebody calls and say, well, Brian never talked about this. Well, I go, exactly. I mean, that's a hint, right? Maybe it's not as important as you think it is, or the test prep vendor thinks it is, right? So, oh my goodness, I am so excited, Jerson. The hat trick. Okay, let's first ring the bell. And then I have to thank Jerson. Alex gave me a very, very special cigar.
Wow.
This is an Opus X Fuentes. This is called the Society. So we have a really, really great cigar to celebrate your hat trick. And tonight's toasting beverage, is the El Tesoro Paradiso. Somebody asked last time, do I have that? And the answer is yes. If there's any fine tequila in the world or fine cigars, I typically have it. But I don't buy the Fuentes, Brian, and I don't buy them because I think they're overpriced in relationship to what you get. That being said, I'll certainly accept them as a gift, and the gift at Guru does not apply to the Test Geek or the Guru. I thought I found an arbitrage opportunity. Test question. Arbitrage opportunity is profiting from price discrepancies. And I read a story, could be fiction for all I know, I'm hoping it's not fiction, that the Fuente family had a hurricane in the Dominican Republic, and it wiped out the wrappers for the Opus X. So they had all this Opus X filler everywhere, but they didn't have any wrappers for it. So they decided to wrap it and call it the Anejo. And I have the Anejo Sharks, which are Opus X's, but you have a different wrapper. And I got them, when I bought them, I said, now I have to smoke the Opus X to see if it really is an arbitrage opportunity, because those Sharks, they're very hard to find, but it's about half the price of an Opus. So, I usually smoke Nicaraguans. I have a friend who keeps slipping me Dominicans. I think he's going to convert me from being a Nicaraguan smoker to a, well, it helps, Dean, if you turn off the lid. So, Jerson, in your honor, my friend, I was hoping, Jerson, we didn't have somebody who didn't pass this Tuesday. I was thinking, Brian, if we don't have anybody who doesn't pass, then Dean can't drink and smoke. Oh my God, I'm going to have to go celibate. Oh, well, now we got to finish put our drink in here. All right. Woo. Now this I'm not going to be surprised because this is one of the best tequilas in the world. Paradiso. This is aged 5 years, so it's pretty mellow as tequilas go. Someday Brian's going to come out and visit because I can't possibly drink and smoke all this stuff myself. All right. So, and now Series 66. Well, okay. I said, what? It's not a hat trick? I got to put the wrapper back on, put the lid back on the tequila. Thanks for joining us, Jerson. We love when victorious test takers come by because it's such a morale boost for people. As I said, you're not alone. And somebody may be struggling and they check in on our Tuesday. Jerson shows up. He's got the hat trick done. Woohoo. And now Haas can ask any tips. Mine is Thursday. So there you go. Just in the chat, knock yourselves out. I would just warn you in the chat, it's not private. So if you're going to put something in the chat, your private business isn't private anymore. But that being said, knock yourselves out talking to each other. Hi, Dean and Brian. How do American and European options affect the timing of taxes for a covered call or covered put strategy? Well, they don't. Because American style, you can exercise anytime. European style, only expiration. So the date would be the date. Don't you think, Brian? Maybe you're thinking of LEAP here, grow your business, DK. What do you think?
There has been a question that I recall from Series 7 where they asked some of the tax ramifications of American versus European. And the only thing I believe I come up with is that in the American, right, let's say they both expire in 2026. Right? But if the stock goes up and your call gets exercised in 2025, then you're going to have a taxable event on the stock in 2025. With the European option, that cannot occur. You cannot get a capital gain or loss on the stock with a European option until it expires in 2026.
Yeah, very interesting question here, because I don't think the test point is that. I think it's that Brian's point, American style, the holder can exercise anytime. That means if you're short, you have additional risk. And European style can only be exercised at expiration. So you have less risk as the person who buys it, and therefore you pay a lower premium. But it's the difference in the exercise, I think, not the taxes on the exercise. So I've never heard of this question other than the difference between European and American, which is very testable.
Yeah, it's the risk of a capital gain on the stock being called away.
Hate from Florida.
Ouch.
Yeah, well, I have no idea what that's about.
No hate, please.
Yeah, we don't do that. So, if you're about hate, you need to find a different channel. We're all about love. We're all about acquiring Buddhahood in one lifetime.
That's right.
Because, Brian and I don't want to come back, right? We think we almost there. We got a few more years, right? As long as you read your textbook, follow the vendor plan, take the practice test, hammer away weak border, you will be fine. Man, that is great advice. Spoken like a successful test taker, Jerson. Love it.
And number 3 is very important. Dean and
what was number 3? Read the book?
Remediate the weak areas.
Yeah, hammer away weak and borderline points. Absolutely. Yeah. You want to turn your weaknesses into strength as much as possible. Exactly. And then, you got to go with what you got. So about a day out, that's it, right? You got to fold up the shot. Passed the Series 7 a few hours ago. Woo! I hope we got a lot of test victories tonight. Ooh. Oh, that's a good cigar. And there's a good tequila. What more could I want? I got a great cigar, a great tequila, a good friend on the other side of the screen. Life is good. Life is good. So don't be stealing my chi with any hate, crypto guy. Thank you for your videos. You're welcome. My pleasure. New York. Ooh. Mother Nature can really turn it up in New York. Look at that. Investment advisor representative in the house.
Yes.
Kudos. Brian and I think that 65 is one of the harder exams. So kudos for taking that down.
Got the P.
Jose, we love it. I love when I see people on LinkedIn. Our preferred platform is YouTube. If we broadcast, it looks like we didn't broadcast to Facebook tonight for whatever technical glitch, but we usually broadcast to Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So it always warms my heart when we see somebody joining us from LinkedIn and Facebook. So welcome. A few weeks. So a few weeks out, you still have lots of time. So I always joke the difference in tragedy and comedy is the timing, right? If there was only an act 6, scene 1, everybody on that stage would still be alive. Except, they run out of time. Act 5, scene 5, everybody's, ends up committing suicide or killing each other. Study plans are the same way. They're kind of like an option. That time value will erode. So a few weeks out, not a problem. Life is good. I would warn you that study plan timelines collapse rapidly. How many times, Ryan, do we get somebody who's got like 2 days left and, they're going to try and cram? The days of cramming are over. You cannot cram and pass any of these exams. Hence my term inch by inch, practice, passing the test is essential because that's what you got to do. You got to matriculate incrementally into scoring position over this next few weeks. So we're not worried with you with a few weeks out for 66. I think it looks good. Just make sure every day you're doing the work. You got to do the work.
Every day.
AM tomorrow. Well, make sure you get some sleep. Reading skills are very, very important on the 24 because you have to answer a lot of judgment questions. I always joke that on Series 7, if you have an answer that says check with the immediate supervisor, always a good choice. On 24, that answer is no longer available to you because you are the immediate supervisor. So you have to make the call, right? So we are wishing you luck. Bon chance, mon ami. That's French for good luck, my friend. Circle back. Let us know how you did. Let us know how you did. The dates are tripping me up. Well, first thing I would say, Blair, is you tell us that you missed an exam because of dates. I'm going to say you had a bigger problem elsewhere. Are there dates? Yes. I think you're smart to go with December 31st. Don't be looking for exceptions. Oh, my God. I thought you said, December 31st is the vast majority of the answers. I go, it is. Well, it's not for a Canadian broker-dealer. I said, did I say all? And I don't think you're going to get a Canadian broker-dealer. So, and by the way, you shouldn't have to guess. You should know, right? 95th, yeah, that's good. What's the easiest way to understand it? Well, dates, memorization, I don't think lends itself way to understand it. So the 3 styles of question are recognition, no understanding necessary. Practical application, you need to understand it. Total return, for example, on your 66. Dollar cost averaging on your 66. Practical application does require an understanding. I guess you could force it through memory work on the calculations, but I find in my personal situation, the math is easier for me if I kind of understand why I'm doing it, right? So, and then the judgment questions, not many judgment questions, but that's a deeper level of understanding because to answer those judgment questions, like suitability questions, you got to go, oh, I don't know, what am I going to do? So do you have any tricks for dates and things like that, Brian?
For dates, no, not for these.
Yeah. Do you think it's material?
31st is good. The 90
days. 30 days. I like 30 days. 30 days is a good one. Brian, would you agree with me that if somebody tells us they missed the mark because of dates, we're going to say, well, you think you had a bigger problem elsewhere?
Absolutely.
So there you go, for what it's worth. I was your instructor for Series 7. Okay. Hopefully you passed that. Missed my 66 by 2 and retake February 20th. What advice would you give students that have 3 weeks to prep? Just take practice exams. No, we should never have a one thing we're doing. Practice exams aren't done to mindlessly kind of, learn new stuff. They're done to do an intellectual inventory goal to see where you're at and identify areas of remediation. You should spend as much time remediating those practice exams as you are doing them. Now, you're getting an 85, and I would be concerned perhaps that you're memorizing questions. I would do no more than one practice test a day, no more than one. And I would break it up. So I wouldn't even do one a day in your case in 3 weeks, maybe 2 or 3 a week, but use those other days to lay a bit more base knowledge on the areas you're remediating, as well as other areas. Watch videos, do the reading, do some quizzes. Have a diversified study plan. Brian, your thoughts?
Here we go again. How many times? I have been using this process now for several years, and it's actually becoming very, very successful. But my first question to you, Colton, would be, what are your weak areas? You said you missed it by 2, right? Did you look at the score sheet? What are your lowest areas? And the last practice final that you did you run the performance tracker? What are your weakest areas? Once you identify those, just what Dean just said, use the videos to work on it, take notes, do a short 10, 15 question quiz on that after reviewing the video. That's what Dean and I are here for, is to help you, right, with these weak areas. It's remediate, practice exam. Remediate, practice exam. And you should be spending at least as much time remediating as taking practice exams.
And P.S., this is the same for any exam. Every exam, even before you miss the mark. Even before you miss the mark.
Exactly. Yep.
Trevor. All right. Wow. I'm getting testing victories all over the place. Woo-hoo! If you haven't joined us before, we ring the bell for victorious test takers. This comes from It's a Wonderful Life, where there's a character named Clarence, and he says that every time a bell rings, that's an angel getting their wings in heaven. So in our case, every time we ring the bell, that means we have a victorious test taker.
We have a P.
IP, what's that mean? Pass?
AP, that's a P.
Oh, P. Get the P, as Brian says. Get the P. Yes. Get the P. Can you help me clarify open and close and mutual funds ETFs versus ETN for my SIE exam? Yes. You know, one thing you really want to do, this is very, very testable on all exams.
I know this.
Yeah. Open. Just think about something that's open. An open-end mutual fund, here we go. Test question, is continually offering new shares to the public. Since they're continually offering new shares to the public, they're not only subject to the Investment Company Act of 1940, they're also subject to 33, because that's what 33 is all about, right? Closed. Closed is not making additional offerings. Closed are traded in the secondary market, supply and demand. So very testable. Open-end funds are always priced based on their NAV. Closed-end funds trade supply and demand in the secondary market. Exchange-traded funds for test purposes. God, there's so many different ETFs out there now. But ETFs, again, what you got to contrast it is not with a closed-end fund, but with a traditional open-end fund. When I say traditional, I mean an ETF is an open-end fund, but not in the sense of how we look at it, how we test on it. It's much different. ETFs are not doing business based on the next calculation of the NAV. Some people don't like forward pricing. So there is no forward pricing as it relates to closed-end or ETFs, because we're not doing this thing NAV plus sales charge. They're supply and demand. ETFs are marginable. And what you're buying is proportion ownership in this portfolio of securities, right? There's the S&P 500, whatever the case may be. And since they are not actively managed, ETFs are not actively managed. Closed-end funds are, open-end funds are for test purposes. They have higher expenses than an ETF. So the advantage has a lower expense structure. It's more tax efficient because they're not buying and selling securities. It is an equity investment. And that leads us to our next test question. An exchange-traded fund, I just told you, is an equity investment. Exchange-traded note, test question, is a debt instrument. You have credit risk. So, Brian, instead of buying the ETF that matches the S&P 500, I say, well, Brian, let's just skip that. I mean, owning a portfolio of those securities is really expensive. How about I, the financial institution, just tell you whatever the S&P 500 does, Brian, I'll give it to you. So if it's 100,000 ETN and the reference index, the S&P, and it goes up 30%, I owe you 30 grand. Now that's the risk, right? So that's the risk. Brian says, well, Dean, don't I have some credit risk that you may not pay me that? I go, absolutely. So ETNs are debt instrument, and test question, you have credit risk. Now, Brian made this comment earlier, Gabriel, that this format is different, but all of you listening should make sure you go make a folded piece of paper at half, open in, closed in. I have a beautiful slide. I have a whole lecture on this. Maybe you put that in the search bar. I'll link to it. I have a whole lecture on difference in open end and closed end. In that slide, Gabriel, I'll tell people this is one of the most target-rich slides in the entire channel on the differences. Brian, your thoughts on this question?
You just took the words out of my mouth. It almost seems like we paid Gabriel to ask us this question.
I promise.
It's one of the most important questions out there. It's on every exam. Every single one. ETNs, not as much, but the differences in the investment companies certainly are. Dean's got 147 and a half videos on these things. I have videos in my video course, on every course, on all of these, where, of course, Dean's magic and my little visual magic should help you to differentiate between at least the three open, closed, and ETFs. ETNs are
now. Listen, Gabriel, you were spot on.
Videos there for you.
Spot on with the question. So, Gabriel, this is the opposite of what we told somebody earlier. I said to them, if you don't know dates, it's not material to your success. If you say, Dean, I missed my mark because I didn't know the difference between open-end and closed-end funds, I'm going to say, ugh, why did you go in with that not being under control, right?
That's how important it is. That's right.
From Illinois, scoring fairly low on my practice test. Well, I hate to sound like a jerk, but what is fairly low? I mean, that's not really helpful in terms of data. Is that fairly low could be in some people's worlds 80, in other people's world it could be 55. Low to me, here's what I would say. Below 60 means you have a knowledge deficit problem. Below 60 means you haven't laid enough base knowledge to know what you're being asked and what the right answers being offered to you are. And that means you need to stop. I had somebody who was mindlessly doing practice test after practice test after practice test, scoring less than 60. I said, you need to take a break and go back and read and lay base and do practice quizzes and then come back and start doing practice tests. So that would, to me, would be at risk. 60 to 70. I think you're at risk, but many, many people who are scoring 60 to 70 still pass, not where we want you to be. I want your practice test scores, because remember, we said practice tests are the intellectual inventory, your mastery of the knowledge. And I would want you to be in the mid 70s, but the higher we can get, the more margin of safety we have. And that's what we're trying to establish, is a margin of safety. We had somebody earlier who was telling us he got an 82 or something. He has a huge margin of safety. We had somebody earlier tell us they had a 71. We still think he's going to pass, but he doesn't have this margin of safety as that other guy, right? In terms of the data. I'm talking data, by the way. I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about data. Brian, your thoughts on this one?
Dean, here we go again. So, you know that bonds. Now, bond to me is a really, really general term. Is that corporate bonds, government bonds, municipal bonds? For SIE, we know it's section 2, right? Secondary markets, YTMs. Probably a little bit asked too much in the practice stuff than it is on the test.
Yeah, I'm with you. So bonds are huge. Bonds are investment products. Investment products are always more testable than others.
So we go on to Dean's videos, right? We're in the SIE playlist. You use the search bar and say, type in secondary markets. I bet you he has 8 videos on secondary markets alone, right? Again, on mine, module 2, lesson 2, corporate bonds, lesson 3 is government bonds, secondary markets. We got videos on all of those things, guys.
Yeah, you know, bid in the ass, the difference between New York and NASDAQ. That's low key, but bonds are investment products. So whenever you're trying in your own mind, prioritize things, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, options, muni bonds, always take precedence in terms of numbers of performance opportunities than secondary markets. Yield to maturity is the general understanding I saw. Nobody's going to make you crunch that. It's do you know where those yields are in relationship to each other.
We got you covered, man. We got videos on every one of those.
Yeah, that's for sure. There's enough SIE content on my channel.
Exactly.
I don't recommend it, but I have many people send me things. Oh, I just use your channel. I didn't buy any paid study materials. I go, not recommended. Please, don't tell people that. What do you recommend on Kaplan test? Well, we just answered this. I realize that you're in the queue, so to speak. I want you in the mid 70s. Now, I know there's some corporate trainers out there, Brian. We know that want you in the 90s. I just think that's ridiculous. Because if you're getting 90s, a lot of times it can be counterproductive because you're memorizing answers. So I think the sweet spot, higher the better. I mean, I'm not opposed to a 78 or 82 or 83, but mid 70s, I think, is the sweet spot. We still want you to test, even if you're 72, 73. We had somebody with 71. I still think you should test. Brian, I think we're in the same on that one, mid 70s.
Exactly right.
And don't reschedule for a false sense of relief. If you are not scoring as well as you'd like, I get upset when people will reschedule their exam where they're in close to that sweet spot and they chicken out. You should only reschedule if you think it's going to add to your comfort and confidence, not because you're chicken to take the test. I mean, you shouldn't reschedule because you're afraid to go into the cave and slay the dragon. There you go. I'm rolling one up. There you go. Oh, maybe that's right. The THC, maybe he's, well, I don't roll my own cigars. I pay somebody to do it for me. Yeah, well, there you go. So it's an acquired practice thing, but I can certainly turn you on. I like smoky, peaty scotches. This is Dominican cigar, but it's pretty full-bodied. And Gina works at a bar where, I was an investor and a good customer. And she said, Dean, this guy came in yesterday and he wanted some scotch. He's never had scotch before. And I told him that we have a customer who drinks a lot of scotch and he wouldn't be drinking if it wasn't great. So she said, I poured him a dram of Lagavulin. I said, oh, Gina, you didn't. She goes, Dean, it smelled like gasoline. It was corked. I said, Gina, scotches don't get corked. There's no way to quit. She goes, oh, I go, don't tell me you threw out a bottle of Lagavulin. No, you want to start somebody where they're at palate-wise, right? So in cigars, a lighter Dominican cigar before you go to medium full-bodied. Scotch, maybe a blended scotch before you go to, a Lagavulin. In the cigar lounge, Brian, thank God it wasn't my pappy. Alex, the guy who gave me this cigar, is his penalty because Saturday night he dropped my bottle of Lagavulin.
Oh, no.
Exploded. I said, man, Alex, you are so lucky that wasn't my 23-year-old pappy, because this Arturo Fuentes Opus X Society would not even come close to making good. I said, this is, it'll make good. Stuff happens. Next time I'm not going to hand it to him. I'll pour it myself.
Pour it for him.
Bassy, I saw you last week. Woohoo! Well, the draws are random. And we want to be able to take, I joke about the face of death draw and the dream draw. I wish for every test taker, the dream draw, everything you studied shows up. But we've got to be over-prepared, over-learn, so that we can take down any draw, including the face of death draw. There you go, harvesting bananas. So, Brian, I say there is a problem with having monkeys harvest bananas and they eat the product. So that probably comes from my mutual fund lecture. We talk about mutual funds later. And I said, in the mutual fund lecture, well, there's active management does have costs, and you got to overcome that. 8 tips on seeking sponsorship. Well, I would go, when I started out, Bradley, I was kind of unique in getting the sponsorship. I had this thing where I sent it to people, what makes this hardworking, loyal person worth hiring? And I did the old-fashioned way, knocking on doors. But we know there are people who are always looking at hiring. And I think I would base that on whether you are interested in being a commissioned salesperson, because that's pretty easy to find sponsorship if you're comfortable in sales. You're going to go find the money, move the money, and place the money, right? You know where those pools of money are. And then there's, back office support kind of firms that are always hiring. I put in that basket E-Trade, Fidelity, in the basket of, sales, New York Life, Edward Jones. So maybe you drew that up and go on your search and start contacting people, just reach out. Brian, your thoughts on sponsorship?
That's exactly right. You got to start looking at brokerage versus advisory firms, sales versus administrative support, those sorts of things. I went in the Charles Schwab office to make my IRA contribution last week. And as soon as I walked in there, and it's raining, it's just pouring cats and dogs. Of course, it's Seattle. What else does it do? Right? So I'm in my ball cap and my big winter coat. And as soon as I walk in here, the gal says, Brian, what can we help you with? How do you? She goes, I just took your video and your practice final, and I passed the Series 7 2 weeks ago. I said, you've recognized me with all this?
Yeah.
Voice. That was cool. So
it's very cool. We do get a lot of
Charles
gratification.
Schwab is a great firm. I love Charles Schwab.
If you're poor and you deserve to be rich, there's nothing better than the securities industry. And how many people do we see later? And, they are very thankful and, send us cigars or, tequila or scotch. So I was one time at a bar and somebody picked up my tab and I thought, well, who is it? It was just a student who, had passed their exam. I did the 66 before the 7 because you're currently on sponsored. People ought to do that. Is this dumb? No, because you're going to be less of a speculation in human capital, right? So we're talking about your Series 7 and, and I'm in charge of finding the firm's human capital. And you come in and you say, hey, I am so into this. I'm so motivated that I already have my SIE in 66. That's going to put you, maybe you get to jump the queue a couple spots. They won't have the risk of knowing you can't pass a test. They won't have to invest in that part of your journey. The downside, I would say, of the 65 is it doesn't work independent of the 7. So there isn't going to be an opportunity for you to use the 66 without a 7. The 65 is its own independent standalone registration where you could work for a fee-based firm like Fisher Investments or something without the 7. So, but I think that I have no problem with that. Can't think of any firm that would have a problem with that. If you want to show some, I think there's a lot of people now. I'm going to sound like the old guy get off my lawn. They just lack initiative. They just, one of my favorite Horatio Alger quotes is, God helps them who help themselves. Those who sit passively waiting for fortune to shower her gifts upon them are likely to wait a long time.
I'd perhaps consider the SIE if you're waiting for
it. Yeah. Why not? Why not? Oh, no, Lauren. Oh, well. There you go. I like it. You're just going to have to go back in the cave and slay the dragon next time. You've got a good look at them. I don't know what you said. Didn't pass. I know the structure. I like the attitude. That's the attitude, too, is when you come back and you miss your mark, that's the attitude the person who sponsored you is looking for. They're not looking for somebody who blames the test prep vendor or blames the Prometric site or makes excuses, Lauren. So I love it. That's the great attitude. That's exactly what you want to do. I do have some recommendations about how to respond to that misfortune. So check out my podcast episode called You Failed. It's linked in the video description tonight. Is it over? Spoiler alert, the answer is no. And obviously it isn't in your case. So just make sure, too, that you don't study for the draw you had, because you might get a different draw. And when people fail the second time, it's usually because they were studying the last draw. The draws are all independent. But don't you love that, Brian? What a great attitude, right?
It is a great attitude. I love it. Yes.
Pass is 65. Thank you for the super chat. I was surprised by 3 questions. Well, we always talk about the IAR. If you listen to Brian and I, you wouldn't have missed that. Right? 6, 6, and 6. And insured muni bonds. Well, insured muni bonds have credit enhancement where the insurance company says that if the issuer misses the interest and principal payments, the insurance company will pick it up. So they have AAA rating. And so that would be the question about the insured muni bond. It has less credit risk. I would add to that, though, that the insurance is only as good as the insurance company. Oh, look at that super chat. Woohoo! 9 and 10, sales supervisor in the house. You are welcome, Brad. Thanks for joining us. So there we go. Sales supervisor, branch office manager. I think the 10 is right up there with the 65, Brian. That thing is such a slog. Yeah, that Series 10. Passed my SIE early January, not sponsored yet. SIE 6, 63, and 65 are the required exams. Well, it depends what firm you work with. As we just said, you wouldn't take a 66 with a 6, because to have investment advisor be an investment advisor rep with a 6, you need a 65. And then the 66 is a combination of the 63, 65. Let's see, what do you already have? Past the SIE.
Just in the order he's written.
Brian, what?
In the order he has them written. He's asking what order.
Yeah, no, I like that. Brian's right. That's the way to do it. Yep. But he's not sponsored yet, so he can't do the 6. He said, I'm not sponsored.
So he can't. So he can't do the 6. All right.
So that leads to a 63, 65 comment. I would say 65, because that'll lay a good base for the 6. No? Harder? Well, let's put it, okay, Brian and I agree.
63 gets us used to the laws.
The 65, we're just, Brian, when he went, whew, that's the toughest in that mix right there. Do you time yourself if you're taking practice tests? I don't, because I never had a time constraint. But I do think people who have time constraints should time themselves. I had a guy at Schwab. I was doing a class at Schwab, and smart guy, but he was running out of time. And I said, the score is worthless. I said, you're not getting data when you're leaving questions on. I said, our first goal should be to get this done in the time allocated. I don't care what the score is. The next practice test, I assume you to turn that in the time allocated. I don't care what the score is. We can work on the score after you can do it in the time allocated, right? Very few people have time constraints on these exams. And here's why. We're not trying to sort people by how quick they take. So they give you plenty of time. The only time you can have a time constraint is when you turn, aim, and shoot, point, and click questions into judgment questions that aren't there. Right. You know, you start to overthink it. You know, and an aim and shoot question. I just did a shared screen practice test with somebody today. I said, squeeze the trigger and move on. We don't need it. It's a recognition question. I think it's A. It's A. You know, so yeah. So now the reason I worry about her is I'm not so worried about the time constraint in her case, but I think if she's burning up that bunch of brain cells on an aim and shoot, point and click recognition question, she might get tired at the end. Yeah. And how many people tell us they miss by a point? And I sometimes worry, Brian, if they're just tired. They get to the end and they got no more juice, no more, the battery in the brain housing group is exhausted. I take the February 6th. I've totaled for and been in the mid to upper 60s. Can't break through. Well, as I said, Logan, what that means you need to do is take a strategic pause, lay some more base, and then go back. You don't want to continue to do 4 more practice exams in the mid to upper 60s. You need to lay more base. Yeah, Brian.
If he's been with us since the beginning of this live stream, he now knows what he needs to do.
That's right. We've talked
I'm looking at you, Logan. It's all you. Remediate the weak areas from your practice. You got to spend as much time on the remediation as you do on the practice files.
And Brian, we've said this too. We realize that people may not be as much of readers as, older guys like us are. But if you're not going to do the reading, then watch the videos on that subject area, right? So I like the videos either put a dent in the reading or to consolidate the reading. But if you're not going to do the reading, and some people just say, I'm not doing the reading, well, then for sure, watch our podcast series, get an overview of your exam that way, just so you know what's in there. 9 points, client recommendations and strategies, 19 to 30. Well, go get the test specifications published by NASA and see what those 19 of 30 questions come from. I would put a plus, means you don't think that was what did you in that section. 0 means you were at par. Minus means you need to do some work on it. But remember, I did warn you, make sure you're not studying for the last exam. Make sure you bring all that above par and everything else you got to keep above par. Brian, your thoughts on that?
Excuse me, Dean, you skipped one.
I did.
Yes, you did.
Seems very similar to, well, the SIE, we'll give you a history lesson. The Series 7 used to be 125 questions, 3 hours each. And they bifurcated it into 2. And so what used to be the first part of the 7 is now the SIE. And there is a lot of overlap, except with the 7, you get much more depth, much more judgment questions, right? SIE is mainly recognition, maybe 2 or 3 practical application questions, 1 or 2 judgment questions. And that is certainly not the 7, right? So that's the biggest difference, I think, is the depth and the nature of the judgment questions on Series 7, particularly as it relates to product suitability, those kind of questions, right? So, we're talking about going in the cave and slay the dragon. The SIE dragon, not so scary. The Series 7 dragon, fire breathing, right? Mm-hmm. So don't get any hubris. Every exam, how many times we see this too? So, Carter, I would add, don't get any hubris. Just because you see familiar information from your SIE or 7 doesn't mean you blow off reading the bond chapter, for example, or the mutual fund chapter. And I have seen so many people miss their mark. It happens a lot on the 66, surprisingly, Carter. Yes, you should have a pep in the step when you pass an exam. I mean, you should feel good. You've earned it. And we have all kinds of 7 people that get to the 66 and go, oh, I know this. And then they go down in flames. So respect each and every exam in and of itself, right?
Correct. That is worth every penny you paid to be on this live stream.
Well, you didn't pay nothing.
That was very worthy.
There you go.
Spend each and every exam.
We'll make a short of it. We'll put it up on that as a short.
There you go.
Just past the 7 this morning. Woo! You are welcome. Got the P. So on to the 66 or the 63. 66 in 14 days. I think we went over that. 2945 laws and regulations. So I call that, by the way, I don't know if it's helpful. I call that law and registrations. I know all the test prep vendors and NASA calls it regulations, but it's really registration. Dean, I emailed you this morning. I've not heard back. Well, I apologize, but I get hundreds and sometimes thousands of unsolicited emails. I try not to be a flake, and I try and respond to every one of them, but sometimes it's impossible. So I will, Louis, write this down. I'll go look for it. I do. I have a ton of emails. You're absolutely right. The best form of contact is the Tuesday live. So now you're here. You've told me you send me an email. I'll go hunt for it. That's the best way to do it. Or on the class tab at deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. There's a weekly jam session and office hour. That's also the best form. I do tutoring, but I'm completely booked. And so I've been offering some free access to that. But, I've got too many people and there's only so many hours in the day. So I apologize. But, email is not the best way to contact me. By the way, same thing if you leave me a voicemail. You leave me a voicemail, I get, 30, 40 of those. And some days I can get through them. Some days I can't. And then people say, well, why don't you hire somebody? I'm like, this is a side hustle. I'm a retired stockbroker and I already got lots of money. I don't feel like having employees and selling stuff. So, test prep, Series 7 test prep. I have the Kaplan book from this year. When I sign up to the program, I get access. Do I use Kaplan? I think Kaplan quizzes are better. Achievable has too much of a variance. We've talked about the variance in scores. And I think Achievable is totally unreliable on a score you get and what that would indicate in terms of your exam. So that's my biggest issue. I'm not part of the Achievable cult. I know there's people who love them. And sometimes I think it's like a network marketing company like Primerica or something. Here's a code to get some Achievable stuff. The other thing I'm concerned with at Achievable is Brandon With, who I really like. He's a good guy. Their former subject matter expert wrote all their content has been missing from Achievable for many, many, many months. So I'm not sure who's now in charge of content. And it seems like the variance has gone up as they tinker with the content without having somebody who knows the stuff. I don't know if Ken Finnan's doing it on a volunteer basis, but Tyler certainly has no expertise on FINRA NASAA exams. So I'm not a big fan of Achievable, as you can tell. Brian, Kaplan, I know you're down on them, but Kaplan has better correlation to the exam. I'll say it that way.
Kaplan is best in class when it comes to the Q-bag.
Yeah.
For any
testing Monday, any tips for my last weekend of studying? Well, your last weekend of studying, Sunday, I would just be putting on your game face, keeping your rhythm. Maybe Saturday, do one more practice test. Just look on the app. Don't try and learn new stuff. Just make sure you know what you know. Right. So don't be going down any rabbit holes. Stay on the broad avenues and highways of this information. Brian, your thoughts on a long last weekend of studying?
Review your weak areas. Review your notes.
Remediation. Yeah. Basically,
I'm telling you that process works. It works a lot.
One more day for remediation for sure. Yeah. Passing the 7 year ago. Woo!
Year ago. Yay!
Already killed the dragon, slayed the dragon, SIE dragon. Okay. I was the series about on sponsor. You guys are the best. Okay. Well, thanks, Chris. I'm glad we were helpful. I passed the 66 yesterday, doing this every few weeks. The firm I'm with recommended 64 before 7. I hate to say this, Joe, but I think that's just a cheap firm. I mean, there's no reason for the firm to put that out of order. The only thing I can think is economics. And so it hurts my heart. Unless you have somebody there who can articulate to me why they don't want to go in the sequence that everybody's done for years, because it makes sense. So they said the info, that's not true. So now I'm more worried about your sponsoring broker dealer. Do you think the SIE in 66 equals a 7, Ron? I certainly don't.
No, it doesn't. And I don't like taking the 66 before the 7. I know some firms.
I don't either.
I know,
but it doesn't require sponsorship. So in our previous guy, we had somebody doing that, but they didn't have the 7 sponsorship. So fine. But in terms of, if you have a choice on how to proceed through that, call it matriculation, right? Matriculating, that's the way to matriculate. You don't go jumping all over the place, right? You go down the field 2, 3, 4 yards, throw a pass, and score the football. I take my 7 Sunday currently on chapter study manual. I don't have any idea what chapter 15 in the study manual is. What workflow do you suggest for your thing? Well, do what you're doing. Chapter 15, after you've finished reading it, watch a video to consolidate that content or put a dent in it before you go into chapter 16. Do some practice quizzes, 25, 30 questions, get a 70%, 75% or better, move on to chapter 16. Chapter 16, rinse and repeat, but then do a combined quiz of those two. Brian, I've always talked about that.
Absolutely.
I actually had somebody send me a bottle that too sweet for my taste. There's a full bottle in my bar. I'm going to give it to my brother. So everybody has a different palate. And that bottle to me was just a little too sweet. To me, it lost its agave essence. But I have lots of people tell me they love it. My brother's not too picky. I'm sure if I offer him a free bottle of tequila, he's going to say yes. He's probably going to love it. My two favorite tequila makers are El Tesoro and Herradura, are the tequilas that I drink and stock every version of their portfolio. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. It looks like we're at the end of the live stream here. 65. Woo! Okay, so let's be clear. You do not win tutoring at a date and time of your choice. If you win our drawing, you win a coaching call. And to claim your winnings, you go to the coaching call. That will be at deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. Let me see where that's at. I should have that here somewhere. It looks like there it is. Boom. There's everything on my YouTube channel is free. The booking page, that is my booking page for tutoring. There's very few things that are free on that booking page. What is free is the weekly Q&A jam session. That's coming up Friday. That's free. So if you want to join us, you can go to the class tab. You can sign up with that. I have a electronic whiteboard, and we go around the horn and see what people want to talk about, and we put it on the whiteboard. And that's where you'll find the coaching call if you're lucky enough to win that tonight. So now let me go back to the coaching call. Oh, we also have a book club there. I haven't got a title for our next reading, but that's also free on the booking page. And there's our coaching call. Okay, so let me go find the Wheel of Fortune, Brian. Giveaway tool. Boom. Choose live stream. Boom. Now, don't put anything in the chat until Brian gets it on the board. It's got to be exactly how Brian puts it in the chat. If you put it in the chat before Brian puts it up there, it won't pick it up. So please wait. We'll tell you when it's good to go. Okay, Brian? So what's the word for today? Oh, I like it.
Now you know what he looks like.
I now have that in there. So if you'd like to participate, Dragon in the chat. And I'll put up our Wheel of Fortune here. Share screen. Boom, boom, boom. And let me get rid of Brian and I think I'll leave us up there, Brian. All right, so we got 7 people in the drawing so far. 9. It's not B Dragon, just Kane. That won't pick up. So put Dragon. You don't have any better odds if you do it 3 times. Once you put it in there, it's kind of over. But not B Dragon, Dragon. Yeah, A.J. Edwards no longer with us, Dan. Isn't that the end of an era, right? And then Dan, I don't even know why they changed Edward D. Jones to Edward Jones. I thought the D was pretty cool, but Know Your Customer still been around. Yep. Originally, Know Your Customer, Dan, was to protect the firm. It wasn't really a highfalutin concept. It was like, Dan, you're the person who brought this customer to us, and so you're vouching that this guy gets a margin trade or option trade. He's good for it. Otherwise, it's going to be charged back to your account, right? So, Reg BI, Reg BI is our way of trying to kind of be a fiduciary without being a fiduciary, right? So, there you go. I'm with you. All right, is that it? 18, going once. Going twice. Let me give the wheel the whole screen. There we go. And let me put the how you collect up here. And you collect. Let's put that up there. That would be the banner. There we go. Boom. So, okay, let's draw. Here we go.
And the winner is
Doro the Adun. All right. Well, Doro, just reach out at the deantenneytutoring.setmore.com coaching call tab. I don't even know if I put it up there yet. So if it's not up there yet, just check back in the morning and it'll be up there. But remember, you can go to that same deantenneytutoring.setmore.com if you'd like and join us for the weekly Q&A jam session, which is this Friday. That's open to everybody. So if you want to join me for that, feel free. I'll have to make sure that's available. What happens is when it fills up, then it disappears from the screen. So if it's not there, same thing. Check back tomorrow, and I'll expand it. I'll make it bigger so more people can join us. All right, let's get rid of that now. Get back to Brian and I. Boom. Let's get rid of this. All right. So thanks for joining us. We're here every Tuesday. Remember, inch by inch, your exam is a cinch. And Brian, you say?
Keep it simple. Stay with what you know. You take the test. Don't let the test take you.
All right, everybody. See you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.